In the dim light of the small room, shadows danced on the worn wooden walls. Julia paced back and forth. Her eyes, usually bright with enthusiasm, were clouded with frustration. Anthony sat at the edge of the small bed, his hands clasped tightly, his gaze following Julia's every step. "Anthony, we can't stay here any longer," Julia said, her voice tinged with desperation. "This place, this life, it's suffocating me. I need to leave. We need to leave." Anthony looked down at his hands, struggling to find the right words. "Julia, running away won't solve anything. We can find a way to make things work here." Julia stopped and turned to face him, her eyes blazing with determination. "How? How can we make things work when my parents don't support our love, our passion? They don't understand me or you or our dreams. They only see what they want me to be." Anthony stood up, closing the distance between them. "I understand your dreams, Julia, but starting over in a new place with nothing, it's not practical. We need a plan, some stability." Julia shook her head, tears of frustration welling up in her eyes. "Anthony, you're not listening. This is about more than just a place. It's about living a life that's true to who we are. Do you remember the day at the waterfall, where we promised we would always be together, always support and love each other, no matter what?" Anthony's face softened at the memory. The waterfall, hidden deep in the forest, was their sanctuary, a place where the outside world and its pressures seemed to vanish. But reality soon intruded on his thoughts. "Of course I remember. But we were dreaming, Julia. Dreams are beautiful, but they don't pay the bills or put food on the table." Julia's frustration turned to anger. "You think I'm being childish, don't you? That I'm just dreaming without any sense of reality?" Anthony sighed, trying to keep his voice calm. "I think you're passionate and driven, but sometimes you don't see the whole picture. You're willing to risk everything without thinking about the consequences." The room fell into a heavy silence, the weight of their words hanging between them. Julia's eyes filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. She stepped closer to Anthony, reaching out to take his hands. "Anthony, I love you, and I believe in us. But I can't stay here and let my dreams die. I need you to come with me. We can figure it out together." Anthony looked into her eyes, seeing the raw emotion and determination there. He felt his resolve wavering, torn between the love he felt for her and the fear of the unknown. "Julia, I love you too. But I'm scared. Scared of what might happen if we fail." Julia squeezed his hands, her voice softening. "We won't fail if we're together. I know it's a leap of faith, but we have to try. For us." Anthony closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision pressing down on him. When he opened them again, he saw the same fire in Julia's eyes that had drawn him to her in the first place. But his own fear and hesitation still lingered, a heavy burden on his heart. He couldn't find the words to reassure her, to promise her that everything would be all right. Julia's face remained hopeful, but the silence between them grew, thick and oppressive. The tension in the room was palpable, a stark contrast to the love they both felt but couldn't fully express. They stood there, holding on to each other, but also to their individual fears and dreams. Finally, Julia pulled back slightly, looking up at Anthony with a mix of frustration and longing. "Anthony, please," she whispered, her voice breaking. Anthony's eyes reflect the conflict within him. "Julia, I don't know," he said, his voice barely audible. Julia stepped back, tears finally spilling over. She turned away, unable to look at him, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Anthony watched her, feeling a deep ache in his chest, but still unable to bridge the gap between them. The room fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by Julia's soft weeping. They were both trapped in their own thoughts, each grappling with their fears and uncertainties. A few years later, Diana, a diligent and enthusiastic administrative assistant, stepped into the office. She was greeted by the usual hum of phones and quiet conversations. Her boss, Andrew, had emphasized the importance of making the office more vibrant and welcoming. He believed that a well-decorated office could boost morale and productivity. Diana felt a surge of motivation as she thought about her assignment. She had always loved art and now had the perfect opportunity to blend her passion with her work. After quickly organizing her tasks for the day, Diana set out to find the perfect pieces of art. She walked down the bustling streets of the city, her eyes scanning the windows of various shops. Finally, she reached a quaint art gallery nestled between a cafe and a bookstore. The sign above the door read, "Elysian Art Gallery." Diana pushed open the door, and a small bell chimed softly. Inside, the gallery was quiet, filled with the soft glow of natural light filtering through large windows. Paintings of all sizes adorned the walls, each telling its own unique story. Diana wandered through the gallery, taking her time to absorb the beauty around her. Her attention was captured by a painting in the corner of the room. It depicted a serene landscape with a waterfall cascading down into a crystal-clear pool, surrounded by lush greenery and vibrant flowers. The scene was so vivid and lifelike that Diana felt as if she could hear the sound of the water and feel the cool mist on her skin. It reminded her of the places Andrew had often described. Places he visited with his wife and his long-lost daughter. "This is it," Diana whispered to herself. She moved closer to the painting, studying the intricate details. It was perfect for the office. It would not only brighten up the space, but also bring a sense of peace and calm. Diana glanced at the price tag and was surprised to find it quite affordable. Her initial joy was tempered by curiosity. Why was such a beautiful painting priced so low? She decided to ask the gallery owner, a fragile woman with delicate wrists and almost translucent blue eyes. "Excuse me," Diana said politely. "Can you tell me more about this painting?" The owner smiled warmly. "Ah, yes, that one is a favorite of mine as well. It's by an artist from Europe. But unfortunately, I don't have much information about him. He prefers to remain anonymous, hence the low price." Diana nodded, still feeling a bit puzzled but grateful for the find. "I'll take it," she said decisively. After making the purchase, Diana carefully carried the painting back to the office. She couldn't wait to see how it would transform the space. Once there, she unwrapped the painting and found the perfect spot on the wall of the main hallway. She stepped back to admire her work, feeling a sense of accomplishment and satisfaction. The office seemed brighter and more inviting. The next morning, Diana entered, greeted by the familiar faces of her colleagues. She made her way to her desk, passing by the painting she had hung just the day before. It had already become a focal point, drawing curious glances and appreciative murmurs. As she settled into her routine, Diana noticed Andrew standing in front of the painting. He seemed lost in thought, his eyes fixed on the serene landscape. She watched him for a moment, noting the subtle shift in his demeanor, a mixture of nostalgia and something deeper, more poignant. "Good morning, Mr. Andrew," Diana greeted. Andrew turned slowly, as if pulled from a distant memory. "Morning, Diana. This painting, it's quite something." Diana smiled, sensing his interest. "I'm glad you like it. It seemed perfect for the office." Andrew nodded, his gaze drifting back to the painting. Where did you find it? Diana hesitated briefly, then stepped closer. I bought it from a small gallery at the end of Main Street. The place is called Elysian Art Gallery. Andrew's brow furrowed slightly. And the person who sold it to you? A woman in her 50s, I think. She had these delicate features and very kind eyes. She mentioned that the artist preferred to remain anonymous, Diana explained, watching Andrew's reaction carefully. Andrew sighed, a hint of disappointment in his expression. I see. Diana's curiosity was piqued. Andrew, why are you so interested in this painting, if you don't mind me asking? The sun cast long shadows across Andrew's office, creating a somber ambiance. Diana stood at the doorway, sensing the weight of the moment. Andrew had asked her to come in for a private conversation, and she could see the tension in his eyes. She took a deep breath and stepped inside, closing the door softly behind her. Andrew gestured to the chair opposite his desk. Please have a seat, Diana. She sat down, her curiosity mingled with concern. What did you want to talk about, Andrew? He leaned back in his chair, his gaze drifting to the painting that had sparked so much emotion. That place in the painting. It's a very special spot. My family used to go there often. It was our sanctuary, a hidden gem we discovered during a family trip. Only we knew about it. Diana listened intently, sensing that there was much more to the story. Andrew's voice grew softer, tinged with nostalgia. I believe my daughter Julia painted it. She had a talent for capturing the essence of a place, and that spot meant the world to her. He paused, gathering his thoughts. Julia is an artist. From a young age, she showed a remarkable gift for painting. But she fell in love with Anthony, a young man from a modest background who taught her the intricacies of art. My wife and I wanted her to have a stable life and to marry someone who could provide for her. We didn't see Anthony as a suitable match. Diana nodded, understanding the familiar tale of parental expectations clashing with youthful dreams. What happened then? Andrew's expression grew pained. We pressured her, hoping she would leave him. But Julia and Anthony were determined. They believed in their love and their shared dream of pursuing art. One night, they decided to leave, to follow their passion without the constraints we imposed on them. He took a deep breath, his eyes glistening with unspoken sorrow. When she left, it broke us. My wife and I realized too late that our love for her should have meant supporting her dreams, not stifling them. We tried to find her, but she had vanished without a trace. Diana felt a lump form in her throat as she imagined the pain and regret Andrew must have endured. I'm so sorry, Andrew. That must have been incredibly difficult. It was, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. And the worst part is, my wife never got to see Julia again. She passed away a few years after Julia left. I think the grief and regret took a toll on her health. Andrew's words hung heavily in the air, and Diana struggled to find the right response. She wanted to comfort him, to offer some solace, but words felt inadequate. I'm here for you, she said softly. If there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. Andrew managed a faint smile, though his eyes remained shadowed. Thank you, Diana. Your support means a lot. Diana hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Do you think there's a chance Julia is near me? That she might have painted this and sent it here for a reason? Andrew's gaze returned to the painting, a mixture of hope and despair in his eyes. I don't know. Part of me wants to believe that she's alive and that this painting is a message. But another part of me is afraid to hope, afraid of the pain if it's not true. Diana reached across the desk, placing her hand gently on his. We won't know unless we try. I want to help you find her, Andrew. Let's follow whatever leads we have and see where they take us. Andrew looked at her, gratitude and a renewed sense of determination shining through his sorrow. Thank you, Diana. I can't do this alone. Together they began to outline a plan. They would visit the gallery again, asking more questions and seeking any additional information that could lead them to the artist. They would also look into any records or connections Andrew might have that could provide clues. As they talked, a quiet resolve settled over them. The journey ahead was uncertain, filled with the possibility of more heartache, but also the chance of reconciliation and healing. Hours passed and the office grew dimmer as the sun set. Diana gathered her things, feeling the weight of the day but also a sense of purpose. As she left Andrew's office, she glanced back at the painting one last time. It was more than just a beautiful scene. It was a beacon of hope, a reminder that the past, though filled with shadows, could still lead to a brighter future. Andrew remained in his office, lost in thought. The memory of Julia and the dream of finding her again filled his heart. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, but with Diana's help, he felt a spark of hope that had long been extinguished. As the night enveloped the city, Diana walked home, her mind racing with plans and possibilities. She was determined to help Andrew find closure, unravel the mystery of the painting, and perhaps bring a family back together. The journey had begun, and with it, the promise of uncovering truths long buried by time and regret. The morning sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow over the city streets as Diana and Andrew set out on their quest. Their first stop was the Elysian Art Gallery, where Diana had purchased the mysterious painting. The bell above the door chimed softly as they entered, the gallery's quiet ambience welcoming them. The same delicate woman with translucent blue eyes greeted them with a warm smile. "Good morning," she said. "Back again, I see." Diana nodded, glancing at Andrew beside her. "This is Andrew, my boss. We're hoping you can help us with some more information about the painting I bought." The woman's expression turned thoughtful as she looked at Andrew, sensing the gravity of the situation. "Of course. What do you need to know?" Andrew stepped forward, his voice steady but filled with a quiet urgency. "The painting Diana bought depicts a place very dear to me and my family. We believe my daughter, Julia, might have painted it. Do you have any more information about the artist or the painting itself?" The owner sighed, a hint of regret in her eyes. "As I mentioned before, the artist remains anonymous. However, I do recall that the shipment containing that painting came with a note. It mentioned the place being a sanctuary, a hidden spot known only to a few." Andrew's eyes lit up with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Do you still have that note? Any detail could help." She nodded and disappeared into a back room, returning a few moments later with a small piece of paper. "Here it is. It's not much, but maybe it can offer some clues." Andrew took the note, his hands trembling slightly. He read it aloud. "This painting is inspired by a sanctuary, a place of healing and peace known only to a few. It holds a special place in my heart, much like the memories it represents." Diana watched Andrew's face closely as he absorbed the words. "It sounds like Julia," he murmured. "She always spoke of that place with such reverence." The gallery owner leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "If I may ask, who is Julia?" Andrew's voice softened, filled with a father's love and regret. "Julia is my daughter, She left home years ago to follow her dreams. This painting might be our only link to finding her. Touched by his story, the owner offered a sympathetic smile. I wish I could help more. All I know is that the painting came from Paris. There's a large art community there, and many anonymous artists send their work from the city. Andrew looked at Diana, a spark of determination in his eyes. Paris. It's a start. They thanked the gallery owner and stepped back out into the street. The air was crisp, filled with the promise of a new beginning. Andrew turned to Diana, his expression resolute. We need to go to Paris. Will you come with me? Diana nodded without hesitation. Of course. We'll find her together. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Andrew used his connections to gather as much information as possible about the art scene in Paris. He reached out to old colleagues and friends, hoping to find any lead that could point them in the right direction. Diana coordinated logistics, arranging flights and accommodations, and setting up meetings with contacts in Paris. The evening before their departure, they met at a quiet cafe to finalize their plans. The atmosphere was relaxed, but the weight of their mission lingered. Are you ready for this? Diana asked, her voice gentle but firm. Andrew took a sip of his coffee, his gaze distant. I've been ready for years, Diana. I just didn't know where to start. Now, thanks to you, I have a direction. Diana reached across the table, placing a reassuring hand on his. We'll find her, Andrew. I believe it. The next morning, they boarded a flight to Paris, the city of light and art. As the plane soared above the clouds, Diana looked out the window, her mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. She felt a mix of excitement and anxiety, but above all, a deep sense of commitment to helping Andrew find closure. Upon arriving in Paris, the city's vibrant energy enveloped them. They checked into their hotel, a charming place near the heart of the art district. Without wasting any time, they began their search, meeting with art dealers, gallery owners, and anyone who might have a clue about the mysterious artist. Days turned into a week, and just as frustration began to set in, they received a promising lead. A renowned gallery was hosting an upcoming exhibition featuring works from anonymous artists, many of whom matched the style and origin of Julia's painting. The exhibition was set to open in a few days, and Andrew and Diana clung to the hope that Julia's work would be among those displayed. As they prepared for the exhibition, Andrew's emotions fluctuated between hope and fear. Diana remained a steady presence, offering encouragement and support. The bond between them grew stronger, forged by their shared mission and the quiet moments of reflection they spent together. The day of the art exhibition dawned bright and clear. Andrew and Diana made their way through the bustling streets of Paris, their hearts filled with a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The gallery hosting the exhibition was nestled in a charming old building, its facade adorned with intricate architectural details that hinted at the treasures within. As they entered the gallery, they were greeted by the soft murmur of voices and the gentle hum of classical music. Paintings of all sizes lined the walls, each one a testament to the skill and creativity of its creator. Diana and Andrew moved through the crowd, their eyes scanning each piece for any hint of Julia's work. Let's start over there, Diana suggested, pointing to a section of the gallery where the paintings seemed to be grouped by style. Andrew nodded, and they made their way through the sea of art enthusiasts. The minutes stretched into an hour as they meticulously examined each painting. Just as doubt began to creep in, Diana stopped in her tracks, her eyes widening in recognition. Andrew? Look at this one, she whispered. her voice trembling with excitement. Andrew followed her gaze and felt his heart skip a beat. The painting in front of them was unmistakably Julia's. The style, the colors, the delicate brushstrokes. It all spoke of her unique, artistic voice. It depicted another serene landscape, similar to the one Diana had purchased, but with a distinct touch of melancholy. "That's her work," Andrew said, his voice choked with emotion. "I know it." Diana's eyes scanned the room. "If she's here, we need to find her." As they stood there, absorbing the moment, a man approached them. He was tall, with an air of quiet confidence and a familiar face that Andrew couldn't quite place. The man's eyes flicked between Andrew and the painting. Andrew turned to get a closer look at him and suddenly realized, "Are you Anthony?" Anthony's expression grew tense. "Mr. Andrew? What are you doing here?" Andrew took a step forward, his voice urgent. "Where is Julia? Is she here? I need to see her. Where is she?" Anthony looked around nervously. "Please, calm down, Mr. Andrew. This isn't the place for this conversation. Please, come with me." "Where are you taking us? Don't try to sidetrack me. Julia is here, isn't she?" Andrew's voice was filled with skepticism. "No, she's not here. If you want to see her, please follow me." Despite their suspicions, Andrew and Diana had no other choice. Only Andrew knew where Julia might be. The streets of Paris were quiet as Anthony led Andrew and Diana to his modest apartment. The gravity of the moment weighed heavily on them. Andrew's heart pounded with a mixture of anticipation and fear. He was about to see his daughter for the first time in years, but the knowledge of her blindness was a cloud over the reunion. Anthony unlocked the door and pushed it open. "Come in," he said softly. The apartment was warm and inviting, filled with the scent of paint and the subtle strains of classical music. It was a place where art and love intertwined, a sanctuary amidst the chaos of the city. As they stepped inside, Andrew heard a familiar voice. "Anthony, is that you?" Julia called out from another room. Andrew's breath caught in his throat. "Julia," he whispered, unable to believe his ears. Julia appeared in the doorway, her hands reaching out as if to feel her way. "Anthony, who's with you?" Andrew took a step forward, his voice trembling. "It's me, Julia. It's Dad." Julia froze, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. "Dad?" she whispered, her voice breaking. Andrew rushed to her, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, it's me. I've missed you so much." Julia reached out, her hands trembling, and touched his face. "I can't believe it," she said, tears spilling from her sightless eyes. "You're really here?" Andrew embraced her, holding her tightly as if to make up for all the lost years. "I'm so sorry, Julia. For everything." Julia clung to him, her emotions a turbulent mix of joy and sorrow. "I've missed you too, Dad." Diana and Anthony stood back, giving them space. Diana's eyes were moist with tears, and she felt a profound sense of gratitude for being part of this moment. As the initial wave of emotions subsided, Andrew pulled back slightly, his eyes searching Julia's face. He waved his hand gently in front of her eyes, and she didn't react. The full realization struck him like a blow. "What happened to your eyes, Julia? How did this happen?" Julia took a deep breath, her expression turning somber. "It's a long story, Dad. Let's sit down." They moved to the living room and Anthony fetched some tea. The atmosphere was heavy with unspoken words as they settled into their seats. Julia began to speak, her voice steady despite the pain in her words. "After Anthony and I left, we struggled a lot. We took on various jobs to make ends meet. But we never gave up on our dream of being artists. We painted whenever we could, supporting each other through everything. Anthony handed out the tea, his face a mask of quiet strength. We found a rhythm, a way to balance our work and our passion. Things were tough, but we were happy. Julia nodded. But then, about 3 years ago, I had an accident at work. I was working at a small art restoration studio. It wasn't my dream job, but it was connected to art, and I thought it was a good opportunity. One day, I was handling some chemicals to clean a painting. I didn't realize that the ventilation system was broken. Andrew's face paled, his eyes wide with shock. "My God, Julia, why didn't you contact us? We could have helped." Julia shook her head, her expression resolute. "I couldn't, Dad. I didn't want to be a burden. I felt like I had to handle it on my own." Anthony reached for Julia's hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Those were dark days. Julia fell into a deep depression. She thought her life as an artist was over. Andrew's heart ached at the thought of his daughter's suffering. "I'm so sorry you had to go through that," Julia continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I remember the day it happened vividly. I was alone in the studio, working late to finish a restoration. The room was poorly ventilated, but I didn't think much of it at the time. As I applied the chemical solvent to the painting, I started feeling dizzy. My vision blurred, but I kept working, thinking it would pass." She paused, her hands trembling slightly. "I should have stopped. I should have left the room. But I was so focused on my work that I ignored the warning signs. Suddenly, everything went dark. I woke up in the hospital, and the doctors told me the chemicals had caused irreversible damage to my eyes." Andrew listened, his heart breaking with each word. "Why didn't you call me, Julia? I would have been there in an instant." Julia shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was scared, Dad. I felt like a failure. I didn't want you to see me like that, broken and helpless." Anthony's grip on her hand tightened, his own eyes reflecting the pain of those dark days. "When I found out, I rushed to the hospital. Julia was inconsolable. She couldn't believe she would never see again, never paint the way she used to. It was devastating." Andrew's voice was choked with emotion. "I'm so sorry you had to go through this alone." Julia took a deep breath, her voice steadier. "But Anthony was there for me. He refused to let me give up. He became my eyes and my hands. He tried to paint under my guidance, bringing my visions to life. It wasn't the same, but it gave me a reason to keep going." Andrew looked at Anthony, his gratitude clear. "Thank you for taking care of her." Anthony nodded, his eyes reflecting a deep bond. "I love her, Mr. Andrews. I couldn't do anything less." Julia continued, her voice stronger now. "We've found a new way to live and create. It's not always easy, but we make it work. And now that you're here, maybe we can find some peace together." Andrew's eyes filled with tears again. "I'm so proud of you, Julia. You've shown incredible strength." The small apartment was filled with the warm glow of lamplight, casting gentle shadows on the walls adorned with various paintings. The air was thick with the weight of the revelations that had just been shared. Andrew sat back in his chair, his mind racing with thoughts of the past and the future. Julia, his daughter, sat beside him, her hand still held by Anthony, the man who had become her anchor. Andrew cleared his throat, breaking the heavy silence. "I never truly understood how much you two meant to each other until now. I was blinded by my own expectations and fears. I regret every moment I stood in the way of your happiness. Julia squeezed his hand gently, her voice soft but steady. Dad, it's not your fault. I made my own choices. And through all the hardship, I found out just how much Anthony loves me. We wouldn't have survived without each other. Andrew's eyes filled with tears. I wish I had seen it sooner, Julia. I wish I had supported you both from the beginning. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. Anthony looked at Andrew, his gaze unwavering. Mr. Andrews, we all made mistakes, but what's important is that we're here now, together. Julia and I love each other deeply, and we found a way to make it work despite everything. Diana, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward, her presence calming. What matters now is that you're all here, willing to move forward together. The past is painful, but it's also behind us. There's a future ahead that you can build together. Julia turned to her father, her blind eyes searching for his face. Dad, Anthony, and I have made a life together. It's different from what I imagined, but it's ours. I want you to be a part of it. I want you to see what we've created. Andrew nodded, his voice thick with emotion. I want that too, Julia. I want to support you in any way I can. You both deserve to follow your dreams without any more obstacles from me. Anthony's eyes softened. Thank you, Mr. Andrews. It means a lot to us to have your support. We've worked hard to get where we are, and with your help, we can achieve even more. Andrew looked around the apartment, taking in the paintings that adorned the walls. Each one was a testament to the bond between Julia and Anthony, their shared vision brought to life through their combined efforts. I'm so proud of you both. These paintings are extraordinary. They deserve to be seen by the world. Julia smiled, her face lighting up with hope. That's what we've been working towards. With your support, we can make it happen. Andrew leaned forward, his voice firm with determination. You have my full support. I'll do whatever it takes to help you get your work out there. You both have a rare talent, and the world deserves to see it. The atmosphere in the room shifted, the heaviness of the past giving way to the lightness of renewed hope. Diana felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing she had played a part in reuniting a father with his daughter and helping to forge a path toward their shared dreams. The conversation turned to lighter topics as they reminisced about happier times and shared stories of their journey. Andrew listened intently, absorbing every detail of the life Julia and Anthony had built together. He marveled at their resilience and the depth of their love, which had carried them through the darkest of times. As the night wore on, the bond between them strengthened. They laughed, cried, and shared their deepest thoughts and fears. Andrew felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years, the weight of regret slowly lifting from his shoulders. Andrew's eyes welled up with tears. I'm so proud of you, Julia. You've shown more strength than I ever could have imagined. And Anthony, thank you for being her rock. Anthony smiled, a mixture of pride and humility in his expression. She's my inspiration, Mr. Andrews. Everything I do for her. Diana watched the exchange, feeling a profound sense of gratitude. She had witnessed the power of love and forgiveness, and it had transformed the lives of everyone in the room. She knew that the journey was far from over, but the first steps had been taken, and they were on a path to healing. As the evening came to a close, Andrew stood up, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I think it's time we shared your work with the world. Let's start planning your next exhibition. We'll make sure it's a success. Julia's face lit up with excitement. That would be amazing, Dad. We have so much to show, so much to say through our art. Anthony nodded in agreement. We've been waiting for this moment. With your support, we can make it happen. Andrew reached out, pulling both Julia and Anthony into a tight embrace. We're a family, and together we can overcome anything. Returning to the office in the city, Diana and Andrew felt a sense of lightness they hadn't experienced in years. The journey to Paris had been transformative, and now they were back to their daily routines with renewed spirits. Diana settled into her desk, her mind still buzzing with memories of the emotional reunion. Andrew, too, found himself more focused and energized. He moved through the office with a newfound determination, greeting his colleagues with warmth and a genuine smile. "Good morning, Diana," Andrew said as he passed her desk, pausing to share a moment of connection. "Good morning, Andrew," she replied, noticing the light in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "How are you feeling today?" "Hopeful," he said simply, and they both understood the depth of that word. In Paris, Anthony and Julia continued their journey in the art world, their lives deeply intertwined. With Andrew's support, they were able to secure a larger studio space and gather the resources needed to prepare for their upcoming exhibition. The days were long, filled with intense preparation and creative energy. Julia sat beside Anthony, guiding his hand as they worked on a new piece. "A little more to the left," she instructed, her voice calm and sure. "Yes, that's perfect." Anthony smiled, grateful for her vision and their shared determination. "You always know exactly how to bring these pieces to life," he said, his admiration evident. "It's because we do it together," Julia replied, her hand resting on his. The anticipation for their exhibition grew, and the day finally arrived. The gallery was abuzz with excitement as people gathered to see the latest works by the mysterious duo. Paintings lined the walls, each one a testament to their combined talent and love. Andrew and Diana flew back to Paris to attend the event, their hearts swelling with pride. As they entered the gallery, they were greeted by a sea of appreciative faces and a soft murmur of admiration. "Diana, look at this turnout," Andrew said, his voice filled with awe. "They've really done it." Diana nodded, her eyes scanning the room. "It's incredible. I'm so happy for them." They made their way through the crowd, stopping to admire each piece. The paintings were stunning, each one telling a story of resilience, love, and partnership. It was clear that Julia and Anthony had poured their hearts into their work. As the evening progressed, Anthony took to the small stage at the front of the gallery, a microphone in hand. The room quieted, all eyes on him. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began, his voice steady and warm. "This exhibition is not just a showcase of our art, but a testament to our journey together. Julia and I have faced many challenges, but we've always found strength in each other and in our shared passion." Julia stood beside him, her presence calm and inspiring. "Your support means the world to us," she added. "We couldn't have done this without the love and encouragement of our family and friends." Anthony's hand found Julia's, and he turned to face her, his expression tender and filled with emotion. "Julia, you are my muse, my partner, and my love. I can't imagine my life without you." The room held its breath as Anthony knelt down, pulling out a small velvet box. "Julia, will you marry me?" Julia gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she nodded, her voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, Anthony, yes, I will marry you." The gallery erupted in applause and cheers, the joy palpable. Andrew watched with tears in his eyes, his heart full. Diana stood beside him, her own eyes misty with happiness. As they embraced, Julia whispered to Anthony, "This is our new beginning." This touching story beautifully captures the emotional journey of a family torn apart by expectations and circumstances, only to be reunited through the power of love, forgiveness, and resilience. The narrative follows Andrew, a father looking for his daughter, Julia, with the help of his conscientious employee, Diana. Julia has faced immense challenges alongside her devoted partner, Anthony. Through a series of poignant events, the characters navigate their past traumas and find a path toward healing and a brighter future. How did you feel about Andrew's journey toward reconciliation with Julia? What are your thoughts on Julia and Anthony's relationship and their resilience in the face of adversity? What moments in the story resonated with you the most? Comment your thoughts in the comment section.